On the coldest night of the year, a retired black veteran running a tiny roadside diner saw 10 truckers stranded in a deadly blizzard. He opened his doors, cooked all night, and saved them without asking for a dime. The next morning, he stepped outside, and what he saw left him in tears. The blizzard came down like judgment over the Appalachian Pass, thick as cotton and mean as sin, shutting down every mile of I-76, leaving rigs jackknifed, gas stations abandoned, and 10 long-haul truckers stranded without heat, fuel, or hope until, by sheer grace, one of them remembered the sign they'd passed an hour earlier. Earl's 24-hour diner, hot food, no bull. And with engines failing and night closing in like a fist, they pushed their rigs through the white wall, praying for anything with a roof and warmth. And what they found was a red and white chrome diner, lights flickering in the snow like a promise from heaven, where inside, a tall, silver-haired black man in an apron named Earl Jackson was just about to close up when the door banged open, and in stumbled a woman with frostbitten lips, muttering about 10 more coming behind. And without asking names or counting heads, Earl turned up the heat, turned the sign back to open, and threw every burner on the grill, barking orders to himself like he was commanding a rescue mission. Which, in truth, he was, because those truckers weren't just cold. Some were hypothermic. One was diabetic and losing consciousness. Another was weeping from the pain in his fingers. And all of them looked at Earl as if he were a lighthouse keeper in the end of the world. And he treated them like guests, not burdens, moving with quiet power, wrapping them in spare blankets, pouring black coffee that steamed like salvation, and frying up eggs and sausage like he was feeding family. And even when the power cut out just before dawn and the world outside disappeared into white silence, Earl didn't flinch. He grabbed a flashlight, lit the emergency gas oven, and served food in the dim orange glow, saying, "This ain't my first storm, folks." Though no one could tell whether he meant the weather or something else entirely, because behind those kind eyes was a grief deeper than snowdrifts, a war vet's silence, and a widower's ache that he carried alone since his wife passed 2 winters ago. The same night the pipes burst and the roof caved in, and he rebuilt this diner by hand, plank by plank, because she loved this place, because she used to sing to the customers and kiss his neck while he washed dishes, and he wasn't about to let her memory die in a storm. So when those truckers woke up to warm food and dry clothes, they couldn't understand why he wouldn't accept a dime. "You're alive. That's payment enough," he said, then sent them on their way with extra sandwiches wrapped in foil and told them to drive safe. And they did, moved to silence some of them blinking back tears, not knowing that one of them had posted the story online that very night. A video of the diner in the snow with the caption, "This man saved us." Find him, and within hours, it had gone viral. 10 million views, then 50. And the next morning, when Earl stepped out to salt the steps, he nearly dropped his bucket at the sight. 2 news vans, a line of people holding signs, and a convoy of semis parked bumper to bumper down the road like a fortress made of gratitude. And standing at the front were those same 10 truckers, each holding a donation envelope, each refusing to let Earl speak before they explained that their companies, their families, even strangers from the internet had all pitched in to fix the roof, update the kitchen, and keep Earl's 24-hour running for 100 more storms. And that wasn't all, because the mayor declared it Earl Jackson Day, and a local university offered him an honorary degree in humanitarian service. And while reporters clamored for quotes and cameras flashed like lightning, Earl just chuckled, adjusted his apron, and said, "I just did what anybody should do," though he knew that wasn't true, that most people would have locked the door and turned off the lights. And maybe that's why his diner, a red dot in a white sea, had drawn those truckers like a beacon, Because kindness has a frequency all its own, and some people are built to broadcast it even in silence, even in snow. And as the day wore on, and customers poured in not for the food, but the man behind the counter, Earl did what he always did, flipped bacon, poured coffee, and asked each person how their mama was, never letting the spotlight linger too long, never telling them how he'd fought in 3 wars, lost 2 brothers, buried a wife, and still chose to open his doors when it would have been easier to stay warm and alone. And maybe that's what made the final twist so powerful, because just before the evening rush, when the blizzard had passed and the roads began to clear, a woman in military uniform stepped inside, looked around like she'd seen a ghost, then whispered, "Dad?" And the whole diner froze, because Earl dropped a plate for the first time in his life and stumbled forward into the arms of a daughter he'd thought was killed overseas. A daughter listed MIA after a helicopter crash. A daughter he'd mourned and dreamed of and prayed for in the quiet hours between rushes. And now here she was, older, thinner, scarred but breathing, explaining through tears that she'd lost her memory for years, had only just recovered enough to find him, and had driven through the storm after recognizing the diner from the viral video. And as father and daughter wept in each other's arms, surrounded by truckers, waitresses, and strangers turned family, a silence fell, the kind that swells in churches or on battlefields. And Earl, the man who saved 10 truckers in a storm, who saved a town with a spatula and a stubborn kind of love, finally let himself be saved too. And the crowd stood in reverent awe as a single snowflake drifted past the window and landed on the hot chrome of the grill, melting instantly into the sound of home.